Well, welcome everyone to another dialogue session where we look into the Christian faith and ask how it inspires our daily lives. Currently, we are celebrating National Families Week. It's a great time to think of our own families and the many other different types of families that people belong to: nuclear, blended, adoptive, and so forth. Our families play a huge role in shaping our identity and how we interact with others. So how does the parish then work with or bring together and support the families in the community? Well, my name is Eckhart and I'm joined with Rosemary, John H, Jenny and John S, who are members of the Passionist Family group within the Nazareth Parish, to chat about their work and their involvement. So Rosemary, to start, for those who aren't aware, what is the Passionist Family group and what do they do?
Well, the Passionist Family group was started by the congregation of Passionist priests in Sydney around about the time of the Vatican II. From my observation, I haven't read that anywhere, but it seems to coincide with that date. And the Passionists were trying to develop a team ministry that involved young people and adult education. And it was at a time when the laity and the clergy were still learning how to, get themselves involved together in the parish life. It was quite a new concept. And so Father Peter McGrath had this system going whereby he had groups of people who coordinated with each other. They were mostly young people and then older people looking to be educated in the ways of the church. And they developed these groups similar to a family. And it seemed to work quite well for the Passionists. And then when they were invited to run a parish in Sydney at Castle Hill, they introduced this concept of groups of people working together to, increase their faith, their involvement in the church, etc. And out of that came the Passionist Family Group movement, and it spread across Australia with great popularity, and it's right across the world actually, but certainly here in Australia it's very, very active.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to be active in our community. John S, can you sort of open it up? How is it sort of organised in our parish, the Passionist Family Group?
Well, we celebrated about a couple, 2 or 3 years ago, 20 years that it's been within the parish, the Torquay Grovedale parish in that time, 20 odd years. So it just comes about by people that are regular involved at the church, and then they form a family group, and the family groups generally are leaders. Jen and I have probably been the leaders in Nazareth in Grovedale for about nearly 10 years now, and we took over from Jill and Bob Healy, and as Rosemary said, she's been involved with, even though she's the main regional coordinator, she's been involved for many years. We were involved in Camperdown originally when we moved back to Grovedale. We just slotted in virtually, and it's just a matter of getting involved with people and asking them if they would like to join the group, and it's a very informal type of groups that we conduct. We have activities, social activities, to try and involve people in a more relaxed and not sort of in a church environment. We go to different areas and talk, and it's really just a belonging and a support group that we offer to. Well, our demographics getting quite old now. We've got older people in their 90s down to John's daughter, that's probably our youngest member, John Harmon's daughter, youngest member. But and we've found that our group has got older and older, and which is a concern. But probably the younger generation, or the next decade down from ourselves, see church and then flowing on to their children and siblings, and that they don't see the church as the same as what we do as elderly people. And it's there mainly to support people when they've got their joys and their sorrows and different things. And I've just been reading back into, as Rosemary said, about Peter McGrath and the movement. It was, and the word isolation was brought to bear when the Passionate Family Group movement set itself up was referred to isolation, which is very, very in our minds at the moment. So that's basically a little bit more of what was happening with the group. And it's all inclusive. It doesn't have to be, it stems from older people, widowed people, single people, divorcees, families, unmarried mothers, etc., etc. So it's inclusive. We don't, and I might add that Jen hasn't been a Catholic for that long. It's probably only since 2015 that Jen was baptised. So she's so we have got converts, and which also lend to our different point of view, and then we have a good time, a chat, and different, as I say, different activities, movies, progressive dinners, picnics. We generally have a big, we have had, I should say, a Christmas party where we all get together, and presents for the children. But as I say, the children's side of it, the family, the smaller family with children has sort of dropped off because the children have got older and they've gone past that, and they've gone about their own things in life. And that's basically how it forms. And as new parishioners, we notice new parishioners, if they're attending at Mass or something, we'll go up and talk to them and invite them and welcome them there, and then maybe ask them once they get comfortable in the parish to sort of approach them if they want to join if they want to be involved in the thing, particularly people that are isolated, that insofar as they haven't got an extended family close by. They may not have their grandchildren close by. They may well be that next generation down that haven't got their own individual parents. They haven't got a network to look after their children at school and things like that. So that's basically how it works, Eckhart.
Thanks, John. John H., could you sort of, if you've been to a few of these events with the Passionist Family Group. Now, John has just touched on there's a few different things that you do together. What can you open up a little bit further? What happens at these events or gatherings? I know it's very big about inclusivity, as you said before, John S. But what would be something if we were to go to one recently? What would we see, or what would we do?
I guess the two big highlights for the year are the Christmas party, which is usually at a different venue around Geelong at a local park or something like that. And a certain man who's on the screen, I won't say his name, usually dresses up as Santa and supplies the presents to all the kids. And it's just a good time to be together, I guess. And then our other one is the mid-year, like a Christmas in July, a progressive dinner for around 3 different households. And so, as John said, it's just a real social time. These are people that you see on Sunday at Mass for maybe only 5 minutes after Mass or something, and a cup of coffee or whatever. And then these opportunities are a chance to have a really good long chat with people at different times. And so my wife and daughter and I, we can't get to all the things because sometimes they're during the week when we're at work and what have you. But for us, it's just that little, I suppose they call it value added these days. Sunday Mass is one thing, but this extra time with people kind of just adds to it, I guess, getting to know people that little bit better. And I know that sometimes if there's a funeral or whatever, it's the family group that are the first ones there organising cakes and things, or maybe some catering and making sure, getting the word out that the funeral's on and things like that. So, yeah.
It really highlights when you were saying there before, John, it's about isolation, but turning it into inclusivity and bringing people together, I think. Jen, can I ask, I know you mentioned there, John H., about you have an event in July. Has what's going to happen with COVID? Has that impacted the PFG, or what's going on there?
Yes, it has affected us greatly. We just can't hold anything. but we work out a calendar in the beginning of the year. We all come together and work out a calendar, and people put their ideas forward on what they might like to go and do or whatever. So that's done by the members. Then John and I type it all up, and we contact everybody, and we try and keep them up to date with all the, if there's any sad news or there's any happy news or whatever, we try and keep them up. And that is once a month generally. There are members who only require a letter because they're not on internet.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally give them a letter. So yes, it has impacted us, and actually our progressive dinner would have been coming up in June next week, but of course we can't have it. So it's a little
Unless
bit
it's a
sad
Zoom
because
dinner.
that's a very popular one. So yeah.
We might have to look to having an online dinner, an online function, Jen.
Yeah. You know what? Mostly people like to eat. It's normally food that gets people together.
Oh,
so,
yes.
Isn't it? Have you found that, Rosemary?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's always
feeding them.
Sorry.
Go on.
It's always the morning teas or the lunches or whatever we do that and we've had some breakfasts which have been really good. So you just jog along, don't you, Rosemary, trying to find something that you might get a few at. And I always say, well, even if there's only 6 come, you get to know that 6 a lot better because you can talk to one another freer.
Yes.
So
very true.
Yeah, so that's it. And I tend to be very relaxed. I don't push the religion bit. We do say a prayer before we begin or a grace before a meal, because I feel it's an out of church experience, getting to know a person's life and a person on person, rather than and then being comfortable in speaking to everyone and not being judged.
Yes.
True.
Rosemary, you were going to mention something before about the sharing of the meal as well, and that food seems to be the source of all life. I think of bringing people together.
Yes. Look, our 2 biggest events are usually the planning meeting in usually January, and a Christmas event later in the year, and the food just arrives and there's so much of it. It is a highlight. And we decided this year that when we had our planning meeting that we would actually have the meeting first, a very short one, and plan very quickly, and then let people eat and drink, because once they started eating and drinking, it became very jolly, and we didn't get very far with the planning. So we have this tight planning period just before the lunch, and then you can stay all day and keep eating. Very friendly.
Jen, you mentioned something about the religion and a mission. Rosemary, if I could come back to you, is that part of the Passionist Family Group movement? Is that to sort of promote the faith, or just to be a witness to, and that how it comes out? I mean, how does it work? Is it part of the planning or not?
I like the use of your word witness, because I'm a huge believer in that. And I think when the Passionist Family Group started, there was quite a bit of influence from the Passionists, and it was probably more spiritually based in the beginning. But over the years, people have become more comfortable with, doing rather than saying, and living the gospel with the people around them. And I think you're bearing witness to the message of Jesus when you're with these people. Your kindness, your acceptance of them, your generosity towards them, all things that are part of our responsibility as a Christian. And so, like Jenny said, we would say grace before a meal. Over the period of Easter, when people couldn't go to Mass, I had links from the head office, and I was forwarding on masses, and if people wanted to watch the Easter ceremonies, they could do that via a link that Family Group sent me. There were some reflections, some meditations, and they went out to the leaders, and the leaders then could distribute them to their groups. But yes, not heavily religious. I think sometimes the new people that join our group are often searching for acceptance and care and concern, and not necessarily wanting anything drummed down their throat about, what we do and don't do. It's that's where the social part of it comes in. I think people see what we are like.
John H., the social part of our lives, as Rosemary just said, bringing people together. And John S. mentioned before that it's a bit tricky with the younger generations. How do we sort of bring the younger generations together a little bit more in the community? Do you think we need to go out and meet them, or how can we keep the Passionist Family Group moving forward with the younger generations, do you think?
Good question. For a while, even though I'm in my 50s now, and so is my wife, we have been kind of like in the younger group, if you like, at Grovedale.
You are in the younger.
Thanks, Jenny, and happy to be considered like that. But interestingly, even just in the last, probably within the last 12 months, you can see that bit of a different dynamic in our parish, can't you, John and Jenny, or in Grovedale, with Armstrong Creek coming online, and more families, a few younger families from that sort of area, and perhaps some families from other backgrounds, like from other countries originally. So, like, even as you say, Eckhart, it makes me think, that maybe is a chance for us to really do a bit of recruiting drive when we're all over the COVID-19, and because some of these families will be probably coming to Geelong without any real connection, any of their own family connections locally. And they could be, might be just the thing that they need and that we need too.
John S. or Jen, what about connecting with schools? Do you think the Passionate Family Group can sort of find an avenue there? Because I think it's a great way to connect the community. Do you think there's some room to build there, do you think?
Well, we have tried everything. But I'm not putting down the young. You're a young dad yourself, I think.
Yeah.
And
yes,
your lives are very full. And we have children ourselves, and they don't go to Mass. I don't look at it as being a bad thing. They are good kids. They would do anything for anyone, and that to me is more benefit than spending an hour in Mass on Sundays. Me, myself, I like to go to Mass. It's a totally different thing for me to my children. So I don't sit in judgment of anyone that doesn't particularly want to go to Mass, because there's always good around, and I see the young ones as that. So we have had young ones in the group, and we've had families, but I think for them to extend into some other group when they've already got sport and all that kind of thing. So I just think we have to just jog along. We invite people.
Just to add to it, I've got the Passionist Family Group movement mission in front of me, and the last line of it says, "Our focus is on people, caring for, loving and accepting each other." So that line, I think, sums up the whole of what the family group's about.
And it's definitely, it coincides with the Christian mission too, and like Rosemary said before, being a witness. So moving forward, where do you see, Rosemary, in the future, the Passionist Family Group going towards? I mean, it's been going since the early 70s. Where do you think it might be in 5 years' time, 10 years' time?
Well, I think it's alive and well. Our group that we personally belong to is quite dynamic, as are the other two groups. And Jenny's and John's group's huge, I think. They've got a lot of people who, it's an ageing group, admittedly, But a lot of people are moving into this area to live, whether they be retiring from the farm or up somewhere in country Victoria, and they're looking for some connection. And I think that will always be the case. And this is a great way of connection with people, like-minded people. And I think it's got a huge future. It might change slightly. I do think that possibly it's going to be difficult to get young families involved because they are involved in sport, they're involved in things that are happening in their own schools. You know, there's always something happening, and possibly they feel that's enough. But for older people like ourselves, it's a wonderful connection to the community and to the parish, not just the, you know, from the point of view of the church, but it's out there in the community. We run into each other, we see each other, we have coffees with each other. I think it's got a good future.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It really builds that sense of belonging, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Even if it needs to be online there, Jen.
I'm hoping it continues. You do make a nice lot of friends out of it, and everybody's really nice to one another, and we do care about everybody, and that's what we should be doing, caring about everyone. And I just don't see the young ones coming into it because of factors of life, actually.
Yeah.
The mum and dads both work now. It's hard. It's hard to fit in. But I think it's really nice if you go along to Mass and we keep an eye out for a new person, and then just let them settle for a while, and then you approach them and ask them, would they like to join? And that's a great way of them learning a little bit about the community. Mm-hmm. And if they're lonely, like a lot of people are lonely, so it's a great connection with those. So
I think it's nice to know that the Passionist Family Group does exist, and it's a supporting behind the community, ever going and constantly connecting the community and making people feel like they belong. I think it's an integral part, however small or large it is. Rosemary, before we finish, is there any final words that you want to sort of end off about the Passionist Family Group that I might have missed out or you'd like to add?
Well, I think we've covered quite a bit, but our group is still growing, and I think yours is too, Jenny, growing considerably. The groups are still growing. There are people still needing that kind of connection. And that's why I think it's got a huge future. I'm glad we were introduced to it many, many years ago in our parish in Melbourne, and we've always been involved. And I hope to continue to be involved.
Lovely. Thanks, Rosemary. Well, thank you everyone for coming along and having a chat today, and you know, at least making the community aware of the Passionist Family Group. I certainly learned a few things about it today. So, and it definitely is nice to have a face in the community that is familiar and you can, you know, say hello to as well. I think it's very important within a community. So, thank you, Rosemary. Thank you, John H, and thank you, Jen, and thank you, John S, for having a chat today about the Passionist Family Group. Look forward to seeing you around in the community and saying good day.